us on the mic, talking life and what's alike. Middle age, it's quite the ride, finding joy and chasing pride. Career dreams and daily grind, funny moments that we find. Letting go of yesterday, making paths along the way. Middle age.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 5 of season 2 of the Tim and Trav Podcast. Hi Tim.
Hello Trav.
How are you, man?
Doing great.
Yeah.
I see we're both in hooded sweatshirts today. It's
I was
just one of
just
those
going to
days.
say, yours is seemingly a little bit cooler than mine. Is that because we have a rock star on our podcast today?
That's an interesting point. I didn't think about it, but maybe subconsciously, yes, I was dressing to try to be cool for once in my life.
I like it. As a reminder for those who have been here before and an intro for the first-time listeners, welcome. Tim and Trav Podcast is basically about our life in our 40s and transitions and everything in between. And this season, season 2, we're focusing on unique passions, and we have a super cool guest that we just recorded with, RogerJones. We've been very blessed up to this point with some awesome guests in general, and he definitely continued to carry the torch for us. So in that regard, so excited to get into that. Tim, do you want to jump in to our couples card game?
Love couples card game, and definitely agree with you on Roger, Trav. These people just keep burning that torch bigger and brighter.
I know, right?
They're awesome folks. So looking forward to sharing that. Couples card game, ladies and gentlemen. My favorite part of our segment. Trav, I will ask you the question first. If you could wake up tomorrow having one quality or talent, what would it be?
So we actually chose this after we knew that we recorded with Roger, and I have never told Roger this actually, so Roger, if you're listening, if I could wake up with one talent, it would be to play the guitar.
Wow.
For real. I have tried to learn several times. I'm really not good at it. And it's one of those things where if I could wake up tomorrow having not put in a lifetime of work like people who are really good at it have done, like Roger, then I would be pretty happy. How about you?
That's funny, Trav. You know, mine's sort of aligned, but before I jump into it, do you want to play the guitar sort of like solo, being a solo artist, or do you want to be would you put yourself in a band and you're kind of up there ripping it up in front of everybody?
So it's a funny question. I actually, in my other life in my head, like the thing that I wish I had actually done, I would be a country music singer.
Yeah.
Wow. Yep.
Yeah.
That'd be it. But I have none of those talents or stage presence.
I don't know. I was going to say it's never too late. I really think that, why don't you give us a sample on one of the upcoming episodes? Play a little track.
Play a little track? All right. I'll pull up Sunos again.
Yeah, no cheating.
No.
I would love to hear you sing. I bet the listeners would enjoy it thoroughly as well. I think it would provide a lot of us, I just think it would make people feel great.
My mom says I'm a good singer, so you can shut up with your sarcasm.
I bet you are. So listen, the first thing that came to my mind when I thought of this question was I would wake up and I would be an incredible singer and dancer.
Really?
I'm not kidding you. Like
wow.
I am the same as you, man. I'm probably 300 times or 3,000 times worse than you, to be quite honest with you. I have got none of that skill, and I wish I could. I wish I could just like, when people just sort of harmonize to songs, or when they, if they're just singing along with the song, you're like, wow, that person has a great voice. Mm-hmm. Nobody's ever said that about me. And I wish that weren't the case. I would love to be a great singer, and I'd love to be a great dancer. I'm worse at dancing, I think, than I am at singing.
But you do have a little bit of training in you in both of those regards. Like I watched you on the stage. Like, you know how to do it.
No, you were probably looking at something else, man. I wish I had any sort of skill, and it's going to be an interesting segue into my awesome wife moment, but because Christy's a really good dancer too, and like, I just feel bad every time I'm on a dance. It's rare anymore. Like we're done with weddings, sort of. Man, I just remember being at all these weddings, and I was like, I'm just embarrassing. I can't keep up with her. She's just drove me crazy.
Well, I'm still calling BS on it a little bit because I believe it was 1999, 98-ish.
Yeah.
Maybe 7 even. I do recall seeing you on stage at St. John's. So, and you were singing and dancing.
Thank you so much. I'd love to find that. And I hope I was as good as you're making it out to be.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. So
that's cool, man. Thank you.
Next segment up is listener comments and questions. Now that we're rolling in season 2 and it's actually aired, I think by this point we've aired 2 or 3.
Yeah, a couple out there.
Yeah, well, there's a few out there. We do have a few listener comments. So Tim, what you got?
We got another international write-in, which is really exciting, and this comes from Dr. Kate, a former guest from season 1. So Kate is currently in Thailand, which is really cool, and she wrote, "Love listening to episode 1 of season 2 from Thailand. Long-time listener, first-timer from Thailand. Awesome season opener, and thanks for helping me pass the airport waiting time. Can't wait for more. Cheers, Kate."
That's amazing.
Thank you, Kate.
Thanks, Kate. I tell you,
she's actually out there, Trev, doing some work that is related to her role as a veterinarian.
Sweet.
Yeah.
We might have to.
I'm surprised they didn't call me.
You know, I think sometimes life takes you in certain paths, and I think it's probably best that you stayed away from needles and anesthesia.
That's so true, man. So very cool comment, but great to hear from Kate, and great to hear that we're being listened to in airports.
I know. You know, if you can get somebody through the airport, that's saying something. So that's kind of high praise to me.
That's cool, man. You got anything?
I do. One of our very steadfast and dedicated listeners, Jeff.
Love Jeff.
Love Jeff. Jeff, thank you for this comment. Here it comes. He said back in the 80s, maybe 3 or 4 years old, he's referring to me, before car seats were a significant thing, Trav was riding in an old dark green Chevy station wagon with his grandfather and me, standing in the middle of the front seat. This old Chevy Impala only had an AM radio. For the kids out there, that means no iPod. Geez, I call it an iPod. They don't even have those anymore. Now our grandfather rarely listened to the radio, but when he did, it was WJR talk radio out of Detroit. Travis loved the radio, so the lack of music did not deter his creative outlet, so he would stand in that front seat dancing to the news. We laughed endlessly. One of the few times I can remember our grandfather laughing out loud while that kid showed his best moves to everyone in Peaburg. Apparently, I could dance at 3 or 4, but I definitely can't dance at 43.
That's sad that it left you. Now, a couple quick questions on this. Was the car in motion?
Oh, I'm sure it was.
So you're standing in the front seat, driving around Perrysburg, dancing to the radio.
The AM radio, WJR.
The AM radio.
Yeah.
You know, times have changed, man.
I tell you, probably for the best.
I don't know. I mean, you know, Perrysburg's pretty safe. The streets were slow moving. I guess anything could have happened, but that's a great story that Jeff shared. I love the fact that you know, we're dancing. I wonder if we put the AM radio on now, if you would, kind of get back into that groove.
I bet. Yeah, for sure. You put me in an old dark green Chevy station wagon,
Wow.
We'll see what happens. I remember that car. I don't remember dancing. Full disclosure, Jeff, I'm sorry. I don't remember that. I remember running the errands and stuff.
Yeah.
I think what he's referring to is probably my grandparents owned a office supply store in Perrysburg long before there were like the big box Staples and stuff like that. And we used to run errands a lot to do deliveries for the office supply store. So that was always a big thrill for me to get to go along. So that's, I'm guessing that's probably what that was. But I had no idea. You know, can I share a quick, funny, silly story from those? For the longest time, my grandfather he was kind of a practical joker, and we'd sit at a red light, and I'd be sitting there in that exact car he's talking about, and he would blow out the red light, and it would turn green. And I thought he was magic. Can I tell you, I was far, far too old when I figured out how he was timing it so perfectly.
When you first said that he would blow it out, I was like, well, how did he do that? So you're not alone. But then I caught up. That's pretty funny. Do you recall how old you were when you discovered that he was messing with you?
I was well into my 20s.
No, come on.
I'm not even joking you. I was sitting there at a red light and I was like, huh, that's how he did that. Man.
Wow. That was very brave of you to admit that.
This is like the the confession corner now.
Seriously, man, that's funny. Great prank on his part, though. Nice, clean, fun prank. That's great.
Totally. I hope somebody out there can use it if they're listening.
Yeah, I might start using it. That's great. That's very funny, man. Well, I still get a kick out of the fact that you were standing in the front seat of a car while it was in motion. And,
can you believe it?
Gosh, we are so far from that time period at this point. You're kind of making me feel old.
Oh, yeah, for sure. No,
Yeah.
I do think there's something about our generation that makes us a little bit more indestructible because we kind of grew up through all those evolutions.
Mm-hmm.
And the first evolution was, there's a shot you might not even have a seatbelt in this car.
Yeah.
Any
Wow,
other
that's awesome, man.
listener comments?
Yeah, I got one quick text from a buddy, Nick. Nick's a great guy, and he had listened to the first episode, and he was just like, Sharon, off to a great start. Thanks so much, and so excited for the launch of season 2. So thank you, Nick, for writing in and
Thanks, Nick.
sharing your kind words. You will get that $50 that I promised you.
I'm not promising any outlay of money, but if you do have a comment or question, be it a story from Tim or Trav's childhood or just a nice or constructive, maybe we'll limit it to constructive criticism, please send us a note at timandtravpodcast@gmail.com, or you can find us on Instagram, Tim and Trav Podcast. We love to hear from you, and we read all of them, so thank you very much.
So what do you got on the awesome list, speaking of?
I have to start. I'm not going to be too long-winded with this, I promise. I have to start with a bit of an apology to you and to people who just listened to episode 4.
Finally. I've been waiting. What are you apologizing for?
Okay, so I did not have one for episode 4. And
Oh, that's right. You did.
I was kind of a wet blanket, and, one of the advantages that I have as the person who listens to these and, edits or whatever, I was listening to myself and I was like, man, that's pathetic. Like, you got to do better than that. So I'm sorry that I was such a Debbie Downer.
Okay. Can I interrupt real quick? On behalf of all of our esteemed listeners, we accept your apology. You were miserable. It was awful. All I wanted to do was just shut off the camera and run. But, myself and all of our listeners, we hung in there for you. We stuck with you because we believe in you. So what do you got this week?
Thanks. So this is a really obvious one, and I'm actually really angry at myself that I didn't even acknowledge this. The Ohio State Buckeyes won the national championship. I cannot believe I didn't recall that when I was thinking about something that actually made me really happy. I was jumping up and down like a little kid when they won. Literally. And I'm just like, oh, there's nothing awesome. I don't know. Like, come on. That was huge, and it was really fun to watch.
Man. I mean, we're all allowed to go into a dark place every once in a while, but I could imagine that as an alum of that institution, you must have been pretty excited.
I was pretty jacked. And it's, I'm sure there's all kinds of people out there that can hate on it, and that's fine. Everybody has their own opinions, but, the Buckeyes are essentially in my blood from actually the same grandfather we were just talking about. So, it's a lifelong dedication and allegiance. So go Bucks.
That's awesome, man. Well, congrats to the team. Really interesting season, and congrats to the whole community of Ohio State fans, because I know there's a lot of happy people there.
Yeah, for sure.
And a lot of really angry people in Michigan.
You know what? Sometimes it gets me out of bed in the morning.
That's cool, man. All right, I'm going to jump in real quick. I found an article recently that just kind of caught my eye. I was on the BBC website, and there was this. The article is titled "How Beer Sludge is Being Turned into Vegan Milk and Leather," which I thought was really interesting.
What?
Yeah. So I saw that, and I was like, "What are they talking about?" And you could look it up again, the BBC's website, but I'm just reading from it real quickly. So around 200 grams is produced for every liter of beer. All right, this is regarding the spent grain that comes out of the beer making process. So It's an equivalent of around 37 million tons of spent grain is, produced as a result of the beer making process. So what do you do with that? I mean, obviously there's ways to compost, take care of, or just discard entirely.
Okay.
And that's the equivalent of around 340 double-decker buses per hour. So there's these groups that are obviously this whole movement of upcycling, or I think that's the right term for that. I just think, I see something like that and I'm like, I just think it's really cool when humans identify, sort of like something that's being outputted from a certain process and then repurpose it to create something else, right? They just keep it moving. And I don't know. I mean, it actually, like, I when I read that, I stood over my trash can and I was like, I wonder what's in here, like, I wonder what we could. I mean, we compost at home and I think we do pretty well with trying to, certainly reduce our impact. But I just think stuff like that's really awesome. And I have a lot of respect for humans who find creative ways to repurpose things that would otherwise just get landfilled or, incinerated and do further damage.
That's really cool. We'll link to that article in the show notes so that other people can read it. I'm with you.
Cool,
that is super, super cool. I love when people, especially on such a large scale, like you're talking millions of tons, right?
Yeah. And it's stuff too that you don't think about, right? Like I enjoy a beer, right? Like every once in a while. And you just don't really think about like all of the steps that go into getting that into your hand, right?
For sure,
and all of the resources that may be depleted as a result of that work. So it's great to consider. It's
That's
good
really
to
cool.
step back a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. That's a good one. I like it. Speaking of awesome things, do you have an awesome wife moment?
I do, sure, yeah. And this is why I had mentioned earlier about the segue of like dancing and singing or whatever. I mean, I kind of shared how talented Christy is with that stuff. She performed, even after college. Like she was active in that scene for a little while, and then it's a tough space to be too. Like I mean, I think it wore her down to a certain extent, but she did a great job with it. So my awesome wife moment is I want to highlight this week just the silliness factor, right? So as an example, Christy will come home from work after a super long day, and Quinn will be like singing. Wicked is pretty popular right now, and my daughter loves it. She loves the soundtrack. So just the other day she's in the kitchen, like, we're cleaning up from dinner or whatever, and Christy comes in the door and Quinn's singing, and like in the drop of a moment, right? It's like, we're performing. Put the bag down. I'm singing with you. I'm dancing with you. It's like, just jumping right into it. That's awesome, man. I mean, that's just such an amazing, I mean, her desire to be, to engage with her children and it's not just, I mean, like that was one moment, but she does it all the time, right? Like there's all these silly, fun moments that Christy just totally takes advantage of. And I have a lot of respect for her. Every once in a while, I'm like, I'm walking away. I can't take this music anymore. I'm done. But she gets in it, and I love that about her. I love the way that she does that.
That's awesome. Everybody needs that kind of levity. And I'm sure, too, especially with her background, it's not like it's like nails on a chalkboard. It's actually probably enjoyable to listen to, which is a whole different level of awesome.
It is awesome. And that's part of the reason I walk out, because I'm like, if I try this, it's going to be painful for myself and others. So I got to just walk away.
That's
so
fair.
How about you, man? What's up with you and Kristen?
I was watching her recently, and I realized as we were going around the room, around the table at dinner, we've kind of made a concerted effort to eat more together. With schedules and stuff in the evenings, it can get really tricky in terms of like, will we actually even be able to sit down and look at each other, and actually have a conversation. And I realized that she was the sounding board for the entire table. And I had to really take a moment to just acknowledge how awesome it was that not only was she listening and being so receptive to three very different voices, all in the same space, but also just the way that she was accepting of the various different things we were all discussing, like it was one of those where I'm sure you do this with Christy. You take a pause and you just realize like, whew, man, like what an incredibly special person. And, we can talk for days and days about her selflessness, but the the ability to just sit there and field all three, sometimes overlapping, frankly, like we're working on that. But it was just like, it was like watching like a musician or a professional athlete in their element. You know what I mean? It was like, man, she is just really good at this. And so, I want to acknowledge that.
That's cool. You know what I was thinking? You should. I think that's a great story. So my middle guy, Nolan, he's pretty active in the soccer scene, and so he's 11, right? He's 11, yeah, and he's at. I always have to kind of check myself on my ages.
I do the same.
So I recognized recently that his teammates and himself, when they score goals now, they have sort of like a dance, right? Or they have sort of like something that they do when they, only when they score a goal. They all have their own like signature move. That's what I'm looking for.
Oh, okay.
I think that Christy and Kristen should create their own signature move that they'd be doing it all the time, right? So you're sitting around the dinner table, Kristen's mediating all these different conversations and keeping everything balanced. At the end of it, she should be able to do something that allows her to acknowledge her own awesomeness.
I like it.
Yeah.
Can I suggest one for Christy?
A move?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. What are you going to do it right now?
No, well, I can't do it right now because I'm not in the physical space with you, but it requires you to be there. And what she's going to do is she's going to flick you right on the forehead. I think that'd be awesome. I bet that dull sound would just get everybody's attention.
Bong.
You can tell her.
She listens to this. She's good. In a couple weeks, I'm going to be sitting there, and all of a sudden, I'm going to just get this whack in the forehead, thanks to you.
Oh, they always say to leave your mark on the world. That's my mark right there.
That's a great signature move. I will let you know if she follows through.
Oh man, that'd be great.
Those are fun, man. Thank you. I love that segment.
Me too. It's a favorite. We do not have any notes from sponsors, I don't believe. Is that correct?
There's some rumblings of our first sponsor, and I don't want to give anything away, but hoping to have something secure in the near future, which is very exciting.
Cool. What I wanted to do too in this moment was to point out the fact that if you have some suggestions of people that you care about, that you want to highlight in terms of what they're doing with their work, like if it's a small business or if it's a new business or if it's a business that's been around forever and it's just something that you think would be really cool to highlight, give us a shout at timandtravpodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to start that conversation because we do believe in helping people, be it just with our small voice here. So give us a message if there's something like that comes to mind.
Great call. Yeah.
I think this leaves us time for our awesome guest.
Let's do this, man. Tell us all about him.
So I don't want to step on his thunder too much, but Roger, like a lot of our guests we've found, is extremely humble. So I'm going to ask you as listeners to kind of cut through that and just understand how awesome he is at what he's doing. He's just not going to say it himself. But Roger is one of my neighbors and a very good friend, and he is an amazing guitarist. And I think we allude to it a little bit that you and I both are very lucky to know a lot of musicians, but we brought Roger on because he could speak to kind of his specific position in that art and in that form, kind of in his midlife like us. So, and he's really, really good at it. So here comes Roger. Well, hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us. RogerJones is here, and we are excited to get into it. So we're going to kind of jump into it right away. Roger, if you could, you and I know each other personally as friends and neighbors, but if you could kind of explain to our audience and to Tim what you do in your normal day-to-day, and then we'll kind of get into your specific passion that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, so normal day-to-day, I'm a Bay Village dad, high school kid and a college kid. But job-wise, I'm a pilot for a major commercial airline based here in Cleveland. Yeah, that's about it. I've been off for a little while, but getting back to work here in the next couple of months. And, play music on the side for fun. And neighborhood band, cover band, local OMF is the name. I'm sure you're going to get into that later.
You're kind of downplaying it. For those who have not had the privilege, part of the reason I wanted to get Roger on here is, I'm very lucky to know quite a few musicians, but Roger is one of those guys that when Kristen and I first went to see him play, we were like, oh, this will be fun. I didn't know that Roger could shred. Roger is actually like an insanely talented musician and guitarist. And so I elevate him to more than just a hobbyist. It's clear that, you obviously have an extreme talent for it, but also a passion for it. So, you mentioned OMF. Can we get into that? Can you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Why is it called OMF?
Oh boy. Well, when my kids were little, it was old man farts is what they called it. But the name came before we even had a band, really. Just some neighborhood guys that we'd get away for guys' getaways, go up to Michigan and go golfing or whatever. And we played, I forget what golf course. It was the first 9. We bought a bunch of PBR, played the first 9, came back around to replenish, and cleaned out the rest of the PBR that they had. And there was this old timer sitting at the bar, ordered a PBR, they said they're out of them. He said, well, who drank them all? Those Ohio mofos? So he said, if we ever start a band, that's going to be the name of the band. So there you go. We've been called Ohio Musical Fellowship. At a fundraiser, they called us Ohio's most fun band. So,
oh, okay. Yeah. All right. It's diverse.
So there you go.
It's versatile. I like it.
But your material, your covers and your billboards and all that stuff just say OMF, I assume?
Just OMF. Exclamation point.
Oh, I like it. Wow.
So let's back up if you don't mind. As a musician, it's very clear to me that you didn't just pick up a guitar a year ago. So when did you start getting into music, and really, like, how did you gravitate toward the guitar and that kind of thing?
Came from kind of a musical family. Mostly classical music is my background from my grandfather and beyond that. But my uncle was a guitar player, and I have a cousin about the same age, and we both learned Smoke on the Water from him at age 10, and nice. Just kept going from there. I never really took lessons or anything. Tried a couple different lessons. One guy had this little wooden kind of chopstick, and he'd rap on the fretboard and kind of point in your knuckles and tell you where to put it. And I told my mom, I'm not into this. Yeah. And then I had this other kind of really cool hair metal kind of looking dude that taught me a few things. But beyond that, it was really just wait until Guitar Magazine came in, and that was how we got our stuff back in the day when I was like 12, 13 years old. There was no YouTube to learn songs, so you hope that the next issue had something that you'd want to learn, and I just learned from there. Wow. And I wouldn't say I appreciate the complimentary remarks about my playing, but I don't find myself some amazing talent. I'm a guy that works really hard and practices really hard. I don't find that I have some natural ability, but I enjoy doing it, and yeah.
That's awesome. I had no idea you weren't trained at all. That like formally, I guess is the better way to put it.
Well, never really. I mean, I took maybe a lesson from each guy or two. Yeah, nothing serious.
That's incredible. And so when you're a kid, were you doing electric specifically? Did you start off acoustic?
Yeah, started acoustic and went to electric probably age... I got my first electric guitar. It was a Sears catalog guitar, probably age 10, something like that, 11. Gotcha. And then upgraded from there. And like I mentioned, my cousin plays also, so we would kind of swap gear and different things like that. I think I traded a moped for a guitar that I have still, and with him. And that was an old Ibanez. And yeah, it's been mostly electric. The band, kind of going back, this band that I'm in now, started with just acoustic stuff around the campfire and backyards and neighborhood. Just me and Jimmy, our front man, who you know, and our buddy Tim, who's a colleague of mine at the airline, picked up the bass. And then we just kind of stole a drummer from another band and found a keyboard player, and here we are.
And is OMF the first band you've been in, or have you been in bands in the past?
No, I was in bands. I mean, I used to jam with guys in middle school and then high school. It's kind of funny. I was, 14 years old as a freshman, and I kind of joined this band with a lot of older guy, like juniors, seniors, and I'd be sitting out there on my amp, waiting to get picked up by some mustachioed, mulleted guy, and I'm sure my mom was thrilled about that, but go to some basement and rock out, So I was in, that's how that started. And then I was in a band called Ramar. I don't know where that name came from, but it was me and two sets of twins, if you can imagine that.
Oh, okay.
Cliff and Clint and Joe and Ed. And so we did that, played at like high school birthday parties and different things like that. And then, a couple different bands in college. And I'd say this project that I'm in now is the most consistently serious band I've ever been in, it's a lot of fun.
And how long has OMF been around? I know how long I've been in the neighborhood, so it's been a bit, but how long has it been around?
I'd have to say, it depends on, the name started before the band happened, actually. So this group, the five of us that are together now, it's probably been since 2019, so about 5 years, but prior to that, I don't know. I'd say we started jamming together, the start of it, about 10 years ago.
Oh, wow.
If I had to guess. But
how often do you guys practice?
That's the challenging part, because we have 3 commercial pilots in the band. So myself, our bass player, and our drummer. So between that and family commitments, we all have kids and other obligations and day jobs. And then just to get the pilot schedules to align is one thing, and then we'll have some random thing that another guy has to do. So we play out probably once a month on average, and if we're lucky, we can squeeze in another practice in that month as well. But so to answer your question, about once a month we'll practice, and maybe about once a month we'll play together. But we try to learn the songs independently and then get together and kind of iron out the rough edges and say, well, either that's going to work or that's not going to work. And, some we have great ideas, the song's going to kill, and then we play them and they're just we're not feeling it. So,
yeah.
But it's a fun process. We're always looking for new stuff to try.
And then in terms of your individual part of that, how often would you say you pick up a guitar, like, either for earnest practice for,
right.
A performance, or just, to enjoy it?
Yeah, so the bulk of our set list is a lot of the same songs, so those get tiresome. So coming off of a gig, I might not touch my guitar for about a week or so, unless I'm trying to learn a new song or something like that. And then usually, a week prior to a gig or 2 weeks prior, I'll kind of start noodling around and go through my solos and stuff like that. Like I said, I'm not a natural talent. I don't find myself, so I really got to work hard and get that muscle memory back to play those more challenging parts. Short answer, not enough as I should be, but or as I'd like to be.
Yeah.
But I do enjoy it. And we're learning, I think we got a show coming up on the 22nd, and we're learning about 5 new songs for it. So that's fun.
Wow.
That gets me back down here playing.
Yeah. That's cool.
In our little studio here.
I was going to say, we can see the studio behind you. For those of you not on YouTube, he's got quite a setup back there. Do you generally host the practices?
Yes, and I have a very tolerant and understanding family that lets me do that on school nights and whatever else. They usually start around 7 and go till who knows when.
Mm-hmm.
But it gets kind of loud down here, and it rattles through the house. But this is where we practice. I have my son's drum set here behind me, so we don't have to. Drummer doesn't have to lug his drum set back and forth, and we got the PA set up down here, which we used to use to gigs, and now we just hire a professional sound man to do that for us, which is nice. So we don't have to tear this down and build it back up every show.
Yeah,
but,
for sure.
Part of a keyboard setup back there. That's our keyboard player stuff, and yeah.
It looks very cool, Roger. I'm thinking about putting some of that stuff behind me just to, make myself look a little bit more hip.
Hey, that happens. There's a lot of guitars out there that hang on walls that never get played, sadly.
Yeah. I love and Trev, great question leading into it. I mean, one of the questions I had for you, Roger, was how, those close to you mentioned your family. What sort of response do you get from them as you're chasing this passion? And, have you ever had complicated moments that have been a little bit difficult for you?
Yeah, I mean, the complications really are just come from the scheduling aspect of everything. And, we get usually in October, some of the clubs will start reaching out and kind of pin down dates. And we'll have those all set, and invariably something will come up. We have to change those around. In fact, I think it still shows the wrong band coming up. It shows us playing this weekend at Time Warp, and we're not playing there till the 22nd, but we got to switch that. But first part of your question, I have a very supportive fan. My mom is a huge music fan. She comes to every show. My wife's usually at every show. My kids have joined me on stage for different songs. My daughter plays trumpet. She's gotten up and rocked out with us before. My son's joined us on drums before. So yeah, I'm very lucky. And I have another friend, Glenn, who's in another band. They're called the Velvomatics. They're awesome. And we kind of go to each other's gigs all the time. And we've commented to each other about this. It almost becomes like a reunion, almost like a party that you're hosting at some live music venue somewhere, and you see all your friends out there hanging out. It's a way for them to get together and regroup, once a month. It's just a really cool thing. They tolerate our music to hang out together. So
that's cool. Are they a cover band as well?
No, they're all original. Glenn is a good friend of mine. He was a pilot. We went to Kent State together and then flight instructed in Brownsville, Texas together, and then got our first airline jobs together. So similar career path. And he was in a accident, a motorcycle, and kind of pretty bad one. He's recovered now, but just never went back into flying. So he's doing this full time. Oh, and wow. They're a local Cleveland band, all original. And they kind of call them when they have a kind of a bigger name coming through. They want an opening act, so they'll play at different bars in Lakewood. In fact, they're opening for a band called Anvil. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of them at all.
Yeah.
Have you? You seen the documentary?
Yeah. That's a good one if you haven't seen it. We'll link to it.
It's awesome.
For sure.
So yeah, they're coming in May. Go check them out. Velvomatics.
That's cool. And you were talking about people will come to you with ideas and stuff, and I know I've probably tossed out about a few bad ideas myself. What are the parameters when you're talking to the guys in OMF? Like, oh, okay, so this was a suggestion, or like you have a suggestion. What are the parameters for like a good thing to add to your set list?
Well, a lot of times we will throw out an idea, and if we're lucky enough to be hanging out with our wives, we'll put it to them, because it's all about what's going to get people moving, and usually the ladies are the first ones on the dance floor if someone's going to get out there. So is this a song that's going to get you out there, or is it going to be one where you're just going to kind of sit there and bop your head to it? Which so we play some of those too, but I guess we want songs that are going to get people wanting to move. And, they can't all be that way, because you got to slow it down and kind of, bring it up and bring it down a little bit. But each person will bring a different idea, and we'll try them, and there's a lot of songs we'd love to play that maybe wouldn't be conducive to a night out where the average crowd wants to see, like some heavier stuff, like we're not going to go play Metallica or things, which would be awesome.
Right.
But, we're not trying to make anybody's ears bleed at these shows. But we push it a little bit. We're learning some Creed for this next show, so that's a fun one. They're on the rise again.
Yeah, I was gonna say they're kind of relevant again. That's funny. So how many songs in a set list do you generally try to hit?
Typically, in a given night, we'll play about anywhere between 45 and 50 songs, something like that.
Wow. Dang.
Yeah.
That I don't know why I expected the number to be so much lower. Like that's a lot of songs to learn.
Yeah, it is. We have a list. I don't know, you can't really see, it's behind me. We made this magnet board with all the different songs, and we'll kind of move them around and bring some old ones back, and table some if they weren't hitting on the last show or whatever. Certain ones are kind of seasonal,
Yeah.
Hang on Sloopy. Obviously, we're not playing that when it's football season's over, but
right.
College. So it's a lot of songs, and that usually is two sets of about, I don't know, whatever. Each song's about 3.5 minutes on average. So do the math on that. We, 22 songs a set, usually do 2 sets, 23 songs, something like that.
Wow. That's amazing. That gives me a whole different appreciation for just how much you have to know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it also tells me how easy you make it look. But
well, yeah,
cool.
And you don't want to know what that boils down to as an hourly rate for a cover band musician. We're definitely not doing it for the money. I want to
talk to you about, and Trav, to your point too, the stamina that's required to keep going. I mean, Roger, do you? I'd be curious for your feedback on that, and how you keep yourself physically trained to do that. And
it can be exhausting. During the break, everybody wants to come up, and you give them hugs, you give them the warning, hey, it's going to be a sweaty one. But we, 3 of us in the band were part of this workout group called F3, which I've told Travis about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tried to headlock you before. We still haven't gotten him out there yet.
I'm too. No, I can't do it.
One of these days. But yeah, it's really cool. It's all men outside, rain or shine, at 5:45 a.m. and it's cardio boot camp style workouts. So that's where I get my exercise. I don't go to a gym or anything like that. But.
So you're obviously like you have a ton of support. You have a ton of people who want to come out. What were the early days of OMF like? Like obviously for those who have not seen them, he's not joking when the ladies get out on the dance floor. Like they are the best possible support system you've ever seen. Like
that's a lot of fun.
They're enthusiastic. They're having a blast. They're loving being there. So what were the early days of OMF like?
Yeah, the early days, like I said, it kind of started around just, there'd be a party or we'd be hanging out late night. And the guitarists would come out and we'd just start annoying people, and we obviously thought everybody was into it. And except our wives, really. There was a night that we were in my backyard. I think it was like a Tuesday night, and we were playing Gloria at 2 a.m., Gloria, screaming. And the next morning, my wife is like, yeah, you need to apologize to this neighbor, to that neighbor. And, of course, I call Carl next door, I call Amanda.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, I'm sorry. We were really loud last night. I know we kept you guys awake. She said, oh, there's no big deal. Carl just went and slept on the other side of the house, in the other room. But yeah, so and then we kind of got our nerve up to do a open mic night at Bay Arts. So you know how they have the Sunday concerts. They used to do one of those every summer that was just open mic, and our kids would get up and sing, or different people would just get up and do stuff. So myself, Jim, and Tim, it was just guitar, bass, and vocals. We decided we'd get our nerve up and get on stage and play a couple songs. So they announced our name. We get up there and we turn around, and Tim is literally on his 10-speed riding home. I don't know if we ever told you that story.
No.
It's phenomenal. So those are the early days. And so Jim and I just got up there and did it.
Wow.
And then that was funny. And then I think that the next couple times we finally got a drummer, and we did a couple house party style events at Jim's house. And yeah, we did a couple like battle of the bands for a couple fundraiser type things, and people said, hey, you guys should keep, it sounds pretty good, keep it going. And luckily, friend of a friend knew the owner of the Time Warp Bar, and they were the ones that kind of gave us the first show out at a club, and that was February of 2020, right before everything shut down. So we just barely squeaked that one in.
Yeah.
And then when things started coming back around, they called us for a few more gigs, and then that spread over to Panini's. We do a few shows there. Spivaks, Avon Lakes, really local, and we unfortunately have to say no to a lot of things just because of scheduling and just because of, family commitments and everything else. But we'd love to get out and do something at the islands or something like that one day. I think that'd be fun. But,
Roger.
Yeah.
You ever played in New Jersey?
New Jersey. I did an internship in New Jersey and probably had my guitar with me. But,
all right. Well, we'll count it.
Yeah.
Is that where you're from?
No, I'm from Ohio originally, but I live here now. So
live. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's all good. I love those stories about the early days, Trav. That was such an awesome question. And, it's so symbolic of anything that's starting, right? And just the hiccups that people or groups experience. But I guess, Roger, now you're well past that, right? You've got this band of 5. It's 4 or 5 other guys.
We're a total of 5.
5 altogether.
4 guys, yeah.
And Trav has shared with me, just how amazing you guys are. He's done it on the podcast, but, he's shared with me personally as well how much he enjoys your art. And can you speak a little bit about, it may even be, I don't know, maybe it's hard to capture in words, but when you guys are like really jiving and it's just very fluid, like what is that like? I mean, that's like sort of the pinnacle of your passion, I would assume, no?
Yeah, it really is. And that's, those moments happen where you're just, it's one thing to do it down here in the room, and it's totally different when you get on stage. Like, we're doing it down here, and we have those moments too, and it's fun. And it's weird because, we're all looking at each other, and we can kind of feed off each other down here. We're facing each other in this little room I'm in. You get on stage, and we're all kind of looking out toward the crowd. But at a certain point, there are those moments where you feel it, and you look back, and the drummer's locked in, and the bass player's locked in, and you're just grooving, and the sound is right, and the crowd is going, and it's just like, this is why we put all the time and effort into it. And it is kind of hard to put into words, but it's an awesome feeling. Definitely.
I bet. Yeah. That's cool. Do you have any, like, you mentioned Tim like rode off on his bike. Do you have any like stage fright at all? Or
can we
Every
just
show.
clarify that was not me? Just
not
different. Okay.
Different.
All right.
Well, that was Devin Harddeck, Tim's band alias. So Devin took off. He's come out of his shell a lot, by the way. So, from that moment of riding off on his 10-speed to the next show, which was in Jim's living room, and he was literally kind of like in the foyer, kind of hiding by the door so people couldn't see him. Mm-hmm. And then he slowly kind of has come out of his shell, and now he's wireless and rocking around the stage, and it's awesome. We kind of forced it. So we played this show, and he didn't know it was going to be his surprise birthday party. And we told him it was another friend's engagement party, and this was at this place in Lakewood that his wife rented and had family and old friends and everything there. And Jim, our singer, had bought these red leather pants that didn't fit him so well. We're like, Tim, why don't you just wear those tonight? It's like, you're not going to know anybody. Who cares? So we talked him into wearing those, and we're walking up to this place, and you can kind of see through the glass that people are in there, and he's looking at us like, how the hell do they know him? Like, how would they know? Like, and then we go there, and he's in his yellow red leather pants in front of all these people.
Oh, my gosh.
But we've joked that we're going to tell him we're all going to do Blue Man Group, and then just not show up in blue paint and just let him be the guy. Or poor Tim.
That's amazing. So you were saying though that you do get a little bit of stage fright, or no?
I do. I get nervous before every show, a little bit, and I think a lot of it has to do with there's so many things that can go wrong, like gear wise, and little hiccups. This isn't working. The wireless isn't transmitting, or I wear in-ear monitors, so you got to make sure that mix is just right. And I feel once we hit that first chord, get about halfway through that first song, a lot of that goes away until I'm looking down the set list and I see, okay, 3 songs down, here comes My Sharona. That's that's another challenging solo. Like, there's a few songs in there that are really kind of push my limits as a guitarist. Probably someone else out there is listening to this going, that's, big deal. But those are the moments that make you nervous. But it's a good nervous. It's a fun adrenaline kind of nervous that you're happy it's gone, but you kind of feed off it in a way.
Yeah. That's interesting. It's it's watching it from the audience, you don't necessarily feel those feelings, obviously. So like, it's interesting to hear somebody actually talk about, like, you get a little nervous. Like, to me, worst nightmare is like, here, you have to showcase something up on stage. Forget it.
Yeah.
Nope.
Well, credit to our front man, Jimmy, Duke Thunderstick.
Thunderstick, yes.
He's a great front man. Like, I would not want that job. All the eyes on me, and just having to be on all the time. But he kills it. He's super entertaining. And I'll say this, kind of going back to that, when we first started, I was a lot more nervous, and because you think when we first started with this band playing out consistently, you're thinking, oh man, everybody out there is watching to make sure we nail this song perfectly. And really, 99% of the people aren't listening for that. They're out there to have a good time and vibe on the songs and your energy. So if you're up there having a good time, odds are people are going to have a good time. If you're looking up there just nervous and staring at your shoes, making sure you're going to hit every note, it creates a different vibe. So I've learned to just kind of let that nervousness go.
OMF is a vibe. So wait, if Duke Thunderstick has a stage name, do you have a stage name?
I'm Rex Powertrain. Rex Powertrain.
That's a good one.
And we
I
got
like it.
Zeus Cannon on keyboard, Thor Fangboner on drums,
Nice.
and we've had a couple. Anyone who's usually, if they've done a couple shows with us, like we have a few neighbors that'll get up and on stage and play certain songs. We usually try to work out some kind of nickname for them. I think our sound guy is Tank Girthquake. Tank Girthquake.
I feel like you guys got these off of one of those things on the internet where it's like, take the street you grew up on.
Yeah.
Add,
Well, Fangboner is one of those. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like it.
Roger.
That's half the fun. So it's sometimes decompressing after a practice, and we just sit in the other room out here and have a couple beers and name people. Yeah, it's fun.
That's funny.
It seems like you guys have some great camaraderie amongst yourselves, which is awesome.
For sure.
Yeah,
Roger,
for sure.
what's more exhilarating, standing up in front of a crowd and rocking through a song with your bandmates, or guiding a commercial airliner on takeoff?
You know what's funny about that? You've heard of the band The Strokes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting in Newark one day working, and I see Casablancas, I think is the lead singer, and the guitarist walking by with these two girls walking through the terminal. And I said to my crew, "That's The Strokes." And they're like, "Who?" I'm like, "I'll be right back." And I normally don't do this and probably shouldn't, but I chased them down to this little bar, and I went inside and introduced myself. And I was like, and they asked that question. They said, "Well, so what's it like, pulling back on the yoke at 150 miles an hour and taking off?" I'm like, "What's it like opening to 30,000 fans?" We were both kind of comparing notes on that. But they say, what is it? Being an airline pilot is a lifetime of boredom speckled with moments of sheer terror, typically. So I'd say that the more adrenaline type of rush I get, it more comes from the live stuff playing in the band, for sure. You don't necessarily want those moments in an airline or in an airplane.
That's fair. That's fair.
There are definitely things that happen to get your attention, but not in a good way usually.
Yeah. It's funny. I didn't really think about the parallels before you said that, Tim. That's a good call. It's also like you want somebody that's cool under pressure. You know what I mean? Like for both. It's like you've got to have that mentality. That makes a lot of sense.
That's true.
If you could join any band, what would it like in terms of just like, oh, they called me up on stage, like you see those on the internet sometimes, like somebody called a kid up on the stage with Green Day or whatever. Do you have a band where you just lose it if that happened?
That would have to be Rat.
Really?
Yeah, the 80s hair band Rat. That was my jam.
Nice. I like it.
Warren DeMartini, one of the greatest rock guitarists ever. A lot of garbage music came out of that area, but a lot of good stuff came out of it too.
There was serious musicianship in there for sure, whether you like the music or not.
And they're touring again. So if they're listening right now,
Yeah, you're free.
You're available. Yeah,
right.
That's funny. That's cool. Tim, you want to ask the impact question?
I'd love to, man. I'd love to keep talking to Roger for like 3 hours. I'm so
seriously,
intrigued by
seriously,
just all of it. And but yeah, I guess we should go there, Trav. So Roger, we asked this of all of our guests. Pretty simple question, but name one person or experience who has had a profound impact on your life, and please explain why.
Obviously there's a lot of people that have huge impacts, when you're talking about close family, wife, kids, mom, dad. But in terms of, the music and my career path, for sure my grandfather, so it'd be my mom's dad, Russell Sholey. Just one of those Renaissance men, kind of did everything. He was an amazing musician, drummer, violinist, piano player, guitarist, played in jazz clubs and things, and was a World War II pilot, flew the Dauntless SBD dive bomber. Watched him build 2 airplanes in his basement, just being around him. He was a huge influence on me in so many different ways. And they don't make them like that anymore,
Man.
The kind of guy that something breaks, you fix it,
Yeah.
I'd go visit him sometimes, and he'd be tinkering on some airplane part, and hey, let's go for a ride, and he'd get it up to 40 miles an hour, and he'd be sticking some turbine out the window and looking at amp meters and trying to figure things out. It was just fascinating.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Is he the reason that you're a pilot?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Ever since that's the only thing I can ever remember I wanted to do, just based on being around him and him taking me to the airport and, watching. He built this first baby Great Lakes, it's called, in his basement. A beautiful airplane, won all kinds of awards for his build. And there was a piece of tape. It was called Roger's Line that he would put in the basement. I could get up close and watch him do certain things, but I wasn't allowed to cross that line until he was done working, and then he'd take me in and show me what he did, whether he was welding or different things, that could be dangerous. But I was just fascinated watching him do that, and just I was always around aviation. So
that's too cool. Well, if you ever do a solo album, you have to call it Roger's Line.
That's awesome. That's great.
It's odd you mentioned that too, Roger. When Trav and I don't see each other, face to face or in person that much, but whenever we are together, he always puts a piece of tape down and calls it Tim's line.
Yeah, exactly. It's usually 30 feet back, and
we should all have that. Just a piece of tape and a marker, just in case. I can think of a few people I would have lines for.
What an interesting story about your grandfather, though. What an inspirational and talented human being.
To even go back further than that, the musicianship. His dad, I guess that'd be my great grandfather, came from a family of 9, and my great grandfather came over from Czechoslovakia as a violin maker, cello maker. I have one of his cellos. So he had about 9 kids. I think it was 9, 3 of which ended up in the Cleveland Orchestra, along with my great-grandfather, percussionists, and my uncle Emil, who was my great-grandfather's brother. His techniques are still being taught today. Some of his compositions are still being played by some of these kids in high school for different competitions and things. So that was, that's where it came from. That was translated to my grandfather. My grandfather remembers being at Severance Hall when he was a little kid, watching him practice. And
crazy.
Unfortunately, none of that talent transferred to me classically.
It's in your blood, though, man.
Yeah, I've just been around it. I'll say I have a pretty good ear. I can hear things and kind of figure them out, but I just don't have the natural ability.
That's incredible. And for those who aren't aware, Cleveland Orchestra is like world renowned. For those who aren't in these circles, that is like that. That's not just like it's the local orchestra. No, that's the big time. That's the biggest.
Back in that time, they were the Rolling Stones. They were touring the world, and back in the 30s, 40s. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's incredible. Man, I'm with Tim. We could have this conversation for 3 hours if we were all out. That's cool. Well, Roger, thank you so much, man. If we want to find OMF and your stuff, we'll put some links out. But can you kind of throw us a bone and tell us where to find that online?
I think on Facebook and Instagram it's at OMF the band. So
okay.
if you Google OMF, you might come up with Ohio Mattress Factory or something like that. But
here's another one you can use.
Yeah,
there you
exactly. At OMF the band, and the solo album Roger's Line will be out in stores soon.
Yes.
Streaming on Apple Music.
You heard it here first. That's amazing. Awesome, Roger. Well, thank you so much, man. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for the invite. It's a pleasure. Great to meet you, Tim.
Awesome. Yeah, you too, Roger. This is great. Thank you.
All right.
That was really enjoyable. I feel like, we keep getting these guests on that I feel like we could talk to for hours.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I agree. I 100% agree. I think that, wow, Roger, thank you, man. I don't even know what to say. It's just fascinating to think about,
sure.
That experience. And then on top of his professional career,
right.
It's just so interesting.
I know, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I was really jealous. Kristen actually got to take a flight just out of pure coincidence, got on a flight that Roger was a pilot for. And I've never felt safer about one of my relatives traveling. So
that's really cool. Yeah. Yeah. I would 100% trust that guy. He seems like just a great guy.
Yeah, for sure.
As long as he doesn't start playing his guitar in the cockpit.
You know what? He could probably do both.
Maybe. Well, that was fun, Trev. Thanks for everything, man.
Yeah, thank you, buddy. And thanks everybody for listening. Like I said, if you want to reach out to us, Tim and Trav Podcast at gmail.com and or on Instagram, Tim and Trav Podcast. We'll see you out there.
Thanks, everybody.
Tim and Travis on the mic, talking life and what's alike. Middle age, it's quite the ride. Finding joy and chasing pride. Career dreams and daily grind. Funny moments that we find. Letting go of yesterday, making paths along the way. Middle age. Middle-aged mayhem, breaking free, finding out who we can be, laughing, learning all the time. Tim and Travis in their prime. Every step a brand new plan, older, wiser, still we stand, navigating through the years, sharing stories, laughs and cheers. Middle-aged mayhem, breaking free, finding out who we can be, laughing, learning all the time. Tim and Travis in their prime. Every step a brand new plan, older, wiser, still we stand, navigating through the years, sharing stories, laughs and cheers. Middle age, enjoying the fun, middle age has just begun. Tim and Travis lead the way, every episode will slay.
All right, let's party. I'm all alone up here.
Like, we found our people. We're okay.
That's cool. That's awesome. And it's really cool that you guys are doing this. I mean,
Well, we're good-looking guys.